So John, when was the last time, we've got a couple minutes before 9. When was the last time you were in the United States?
I was actually back there pretty recently, actually. It was kind of a random trip. There's actually a Cashmere production facility here that I do some kind of consulting work with, or I do some work with. And they sent me to a few different expos in the US. So it was a pretty quick trip, although I did get a week to spend at home with my parents as well too. So it was like everything was finalized on a Friday, and then I was on a plane Saturday. it was very quick going all around. So everything happened pretty quick, but yeah. And then I knew I had to make some time to stop home and see my mom. If she knew that I got back to the States without coming home, I would be in lots of trouble. So yeah, it was still good. It was a good excuse to get back. I hadn't been back to the States in the summer or in the spring in a very long time, because usually I just go home once whenever the yarn gets out of production. I kind of follow it home. I'll send that over, and then I follow it back over in a plane as well. And that's usually, well, these past couple of years have been complicated. So with production cycles and things like that. Previously it was, October, November, things would get finished up. And then this past couple of years, it's been December. So a little bit later, but yeah, it was also nice to be back home when it's not cold out, but it's also, leaving Mongolia in the winter, it's nice to get a month or so break from the winters here as well. So I guess it goes both ways.
So I'm envisioning, so we're here in Wyoming. We're at some altitude also. So I'm assuming, I don't know the Mongolia's landscape, but I'm assuming mountains and high altitude.
Yeah, it really depends where you go. Like Mongolia is one of those, it's actually there's a lot of landmass here. It's the least densely populated country in the world. So there's only 3 million people here, but it's a huge landscape. So it's pretty much whatever you want. You can go different places where there's a lot of woods. There's no rainforest here. I think that's probably the only thing you can't find. But, if you go down to the south into the Gobi, you got desert, especially on the western side, there's a lot of mountains. And then in the northeast, there's just a lot more just kind of plain steppes and plains. And then you kind of got everything in the middle as well too. So kind of similar to America in a lot of ways. It's like you could go mountains, you could be in the Midwest, whereas just plains, kind of open land. Desert if you want to go down to the southwest as well too. So kind of depending. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, exciting. Well, I see it's after 9 o'clock, so I thought let's try and start promptly. I just wanted to welcome everybody. This is Lori Kirk from Cowgirl Yarn, and we are hosting our first live Zoom event for the Hot August Knits, and we are live from Mongolia with Jon Hetts. And Jon, I'd like for you to say hello, and if you want to share about your company and how it got started and what the amazing things that you are doing in Mongolia.
Awesome. Yeah, sure. But thank you for the introduction. But yeah, I'm Jon Hetts, the founder of Ula and Lia. Yeah, I'm coming to you from my apartment. I didn't know about my travel schedule whenever we were first planning this. There was a chance that I was going to be in the countryside somewhere, but instead you get the plain white wall instead of the Mongolian countryside and yaks running around behind me. Yeah. But yeah, I kind of have like a little bit of a speech planned or presentation. Can I share my screen? It's always a little bit risky, but it should work. But kind of a little bit of a visual storytelling, I guess. I have some good pictures that will help me out with the.
Yeah, you should be able to share screen now.
Okay.
The way that you use the form?
No, I think that covers well.
That covers that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I could just ask all participants to please mute themselves.
Okay, how's this going here? Can you guys see the picture? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Helps me and then when I'm going through, it kind of helps me keep my bearings whenever I'm talking. But like I said, I'll kind of talk kind of in three parts, I guess. I'll do a little bit of an intro, how I ended up in Mongolia, and how the company started. And then also I'll get into talking about the fiber, the different kind of fibers that we procure, and then also the manufacturing process. But I guess first off, I am from Pittsburgh. I was born in Chicago, but kind of raised in Pittsburgh, went to high school and then university in Pittsburgh. And I graduated in 2009 with a finance degree, which was not a great year to be graduating with a finance degree. So I thought volunteering was a good idea. And so I applied for the Peace Corps. And whenever I applied for the Peace Corps, it's possible that you can select the region that you would like to be sent to. A lot of it is South America, Africa. There's some other Southeast Asian countries as well. But I applied to the Peace Corps and didn't know where I was going to be sent. Got accepted, and then they ended up bringing me to Mongolia. And so I guess the rest is fate, kind of after that. Yeah, and so I came here originally in 2010, and with the Peace Corps, I was a small business development advisor, and that was 2 years. And after I went home after 2 years, I brought my mom a cashmere scarf as a gift, which pretty common gift visiting Mongolia. You get something cashmere to bring back to your family. And of course, my mom loved it. And at that point, I was trying to find a way to stay involved with Mongolia, but didn't actually know how or what to do. And that kind of got the gears turning in my head. So I ended up coming back. I was a little bit back and forth, but by 2014, I moved back to Mongolia on a more permanent basis with the idea to start a fashion label. And that's kind of how I got my start in business, which is different from my current company. But I think the next picture here, this was with the production facility I was working with to make cashmere clothes. This was in 2014. The woman on the left, Bolser, she was the designer, and they were fitting a cashmere poncho. So they were doing the design for the poncho, doing the designing. And that was a really big learning experience for me, but I am not a fashion designer. So I actually had a pretty good response with the things that I made in the first year. And then after that, I kind of lost touch a little bit. But that's how I got the start in things. And I ran that fashion label. It was called Step Cashmere for about 2 years before I decided to move on from that. And during that time, I was not making much money with the fashion label. So I was just here teaching English to pay rent and working on the fashion label on the side. So when that kind of dissolved, I was just back to teaching English full time and looking for the next opportunity here. This was maybe the last year of the fashion label with the cashmere sweater. Actually, I had some beautiful pictures taken as well. So good memories. And then so after that, that kind of brought me to Ula and Lia eventually. There's all sorts of different beautiful textiles here. There's yak wool, cashmere, baby camel wool, and even sheep wool is also really good quality. And I would see it in the shops here. And so that's kind of the idea that I came up with to start with kind of like a homewares type of a label. So some pictures of some yak wool throw blankets. And this was the first time that I ran a Kickstarter campaign. And Ula and Lia is that's kind of the big part of my business, or how we've been able to develop as much as we have over the last 4 or 5 years. But Kickstarter, for those that haven't heard of Kickstarter before, the idea, and so generally speaking, at least for blankets, a little bit different for yarn, but there are manufacturing batch minimums here that can be very expensive. At the time when I started Ula and Lia, I had no money, so I couldn't afford to buy a bunch of inventory and just hope that it sold. It wouldn't be possible for me. So what Kickstarter allowed me to do is I created a project on Kickstarter, and the goal was $7,500, I believe, or maybe the first goal that I set was 5,000. And I was selling yak wool blankets. So I got sample photos from shops, and I set a goal on Kickstarter, so for $5,000. And if I raised that much money, I would have the money to do a production run and be able to fulfill the orders. So if, for example, if the goal is $5,000, I am actually pre-selling the blankets, or I'm pre-selling the items with a promise to deliver at a later date. If the Kickstarter reaches its goal, then I get the money, I produce the items, and then I deliver it to the customers. If it doesn't reach the goal, then I do not get the money. And then that way I'm not on the hook to deliver products that I'm not able to produce, that I'm not able to meet the batch minimums for. So that's kind of how the Kickstarter started. And that was my first project. It wasn't with yarn, but it was with blankets. And one of the things, and this was through my, when I had my fashion label, I had a pop-up shop back in 2014. And then also through the Kickstarter project, I had a lot of people asking me, can I just get the yarn? And so that kind of brought the idea for the next Kickstarter campaign, which was where Ula and Lia knitting yarn started. I think hopefully this video is going through, but this is actually the blankets being produced. And the spinning facility that I use also does wovens. So it's like very old Japanese weaving equipment that they use, but this is part of the process of making the blankets. And then that kind of brought me, the season after that, it brought me to my first Kickstarter campaign for yarn. And the first year we had cashmere, baby camel wool, and yak wool. It was just a few colors. I think the original goal that I had was $15,000, and it was a very slow start. And actually, kind of what got traction is I made a post on Ravelry, just kind of spamming the project for lack of a better term. And I actually got some mixed response there. There were some people that, didn't quite believe in me or didn't think that I had any business making yarn, what my history was or wasn't in yarn. But kind of the story that I was able to tell, it still got a lot of backing. And also on Kickstarter, it recognized my project as like a project we love. And so that bit of luck as well, I think we ended up raising about $30,000 that first year with yarn. And kind of from then on, the rest is history, as they say. So now I think we just finished our fifth season. I'm even losing track. So we just finished our 5th season of fundraising, and everything's going into production now. I'll be getting the rest of the cashmere delivery next week, and then it's all to being dyed and spun and all of that good stuff. So, kind of pause this. And so that's kind of the intro. And feel free if you guys have questions. I'm not sure if I can see the questions or the chat here, but that's kind of it for the intro. If there's a good time for you guys to interrupt me with questions about like the different things I'm talking about, please do. I'm not much of a lecturer, so I kind of prefer answering questions rather than rambling on by myself. But as far as where the fiber comes from, I mentioned earlier that Mongolia is the most densely populated country in the world. And so there's lots of open space, lots of animals, and all the animals are raised by traditional nomadic herders here. and all the animals are free range. They kind of come and go as they please, but they usually end up in about a 2 or 3 kilometer square around the camp. And then the camp will rotate as the seasons change to help replenish the pasture land. This is a yak herder that I visited. We were out through the woods actually chasing a wolf out of the area. And so this is on the way back. These are his yaks. We found them in the woods, and they're going to go off to the left and kind of continue their grazing while we turn to the right and go back to the ranch. I was also on a horse, so I'm sorry for the rough camera work. But still gives a pretty good idea of what Mongolia is usually like. You go out into the countryside, there's going to be wide open spaces and then patches of animals every so often. This was some of the family that I stayed with, and it kind of depends where you are or the different arrangements that they have. But so they're not all like the same daughters and sons of one nuclear family. A lot of times it'll be an extended family that stay together, kind of help with the work. You could see in the back, I'll have better pictures of them soon, but the yurts, they're felt tents, which that's kind of the standard home for herders on the range. You can build them up and pack them back down and take them to your new spot very quickly. They're very cozy. They have a stove in the middle. You can burn wood or coal. Coal lasts a lot longer in the winter. So when you go to bed and it's negative 20, negative 30 degrees outside, the coal will burn a lot longer and keep you a lot warmer. Wood, you're going to have to be waking up a couple of times during the night to be tending to the heat. So yeah, wood burns a lot cleaner, but coal burns a lot longer. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. And then this is kind of one more picture of the camp that they have here. So their ranch. This was I think when I went to visit them, it was in early or late spring. So I think it was actually still their winter camp. And so for summer, they would move somewhere else, depending on different places that protect you from the wind or protect you from the cold better will kind of depend where you go for the different seasons. And then this is another shot from inside of a Mongolian gyr. There's also a little mouse hanging out by the bottom of the doorstep. But usually how they're decorated is very traditional. But yeah, very comfortable, very homey. Nice place to be. This is walking out of a Mongolian yurt in the morning. Seems like the zoom is off a little bit. Well, at least you get the noises. Sorry, I don't think you guys can see much. I'm not sure what happened with the zooming of it all, but yeah, early in the morning, as soon as sun rises, the goats and the sheep and everything are out. And then after the cows get milked, all the goats and the sheep and they go out to pasture, and they're out to pasture all day. And then they come back in the evening where they kind of stay around the camp, and that process repeats itself.
John, the family that you showed, is that one extended family camp? That question is from Amy Smith.
Yeah, I forget exactly who was related to whom here, or I think the little fella on the front, the guy I was staying with, That was one of his sons. He had 2 sons, and then so the others are just cousins, I guess, because the guy stayed, I don't know whose relatives were whose, but he was married, and then so it's probably some of his relatives stay in one of the gears, and some of her relatives probably stay in one of the gears as well. So I'm not exactly sure how they were all related, but that's not uncommon for there to be kind of a large, like a group of 4 or 5 families that stay together, and people are always coming and going too.
Thank you.
But yeah, so as far as the different fibers go, we got cashmere. So the Silphella, eaten strong in the winter. So that's kind of the thing with Mongolian fibers. So in the winter, temperatures get down to -30, -40 degrees, and they're free range. So they have to grow these very warm and downy fibers. So it's part of the weather, the weather being part of it, the free range nature of the animals that gives Mongolian cashmere its qualities, long, durable, and very soft, very warm. So cashmere is one of the fibers, and then also baby yaks. So the Silphella with the dirty hooves, the yaks, the first and second years get brushed, and their fiber is still fine enough for it to feel soft on your skin, comparable to cashmere, comparable to a fine merino wool. For the older yaks, their fur is generally used more for felted items and things like that. All things being equal, the older an animal gets, the more coarse the fiber becomes. But yeah, the goats, the yaks, and the camels, they all get brushed in the springtime. So whenever they start to shed, whenever it starts to get too hot for their cashmere and yak down and camel wool, they start shedding it, and the herders will brush it off and collect it at that time. The goats get brushed earlier, usually in mid-spring to late spring. And then yaks are after that. Since yaks live at higher elevations, it usually stays colder there. And camels are the last to get brushed. A pair of baby camels. These are actually firstborn. These were just born this season. So they won't get brushed their first year. But after they go through a winter, they'll get brushed in the following spring. So when they're 1 and 2 years old, the baby camel wool is procured. And when baby camel wool is procured properly, when it's brushed and it's from like the proper aged camels, it's a very fine fiber, very comparable almost completely to cashmere. They're all legs. They're so cute. It seems I'm a little bit nervous to try and adjust, because it seems like I'm having an issue with the Zoom, but.
John, we have a couple of questions while you're working on the Zoom video options. We have a couple of questions. Are yaks friendly enough to be brushed? And how do you catch a baby to brush it? Baby yak, that is.
Yeah, the yaks in the mornings, they'll be with their moms, like getting milked, or they'll be milking or with their moms. In the mornings, when they're around the ranch, they're actually quite tame. You can go up to them, you can touch them. And it's kind of the same for all the animals that I notice, because I'm always trying to get really close for pictures. And whenever I go and visit a herd in the middle of the day, when they're out grazing, they are very skittish. They don't let me get very close. But once they get around the ranch, they're quite a bit more tame. So catching them usually isn't that big of an issue. And yaks are quite mild-mannered. They grunt a lot, but they don't attack, they don't charge, especially not the babies. This is supposed to be a video of the brushing process. I don't know, the way that I can best explain the brushing process in general is it's kind of like the animals in general, they're kind of like feral cats, I guess. It's like they don't they don't like to be handled because they're not used to being handled. But it doesn't hurt them. They're just a little bit nervous or skittish. I know my mom, she's kind of like the cat whisperer, I guess is what we call her, because she's always befriending feral cats. And then at first they're extremely skittish, and then they get closer, feed them a little bit. And then the more human contact they have, the more that they enjoy it. But they're not really kept as pets. They don't have a lot of direct human contact. So they're a little bit squirmish, but they're not being hurt. I'm hoping this.
And John, is this the video that you have on your YouTube channel of the yak being brushed by a gentleman?
Yes.
Okay. So we will share that. We'll put that link in for our customers to be able to find your YouTube channel and be able to see a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, the Zoom isn't working out perfectly. I don't know what happened with the videos, but yeah. But okay. So yeah, it's like, and then in the spring, all the fiber gets brushed and collected, and then it kind of comes into the capital, into UB, where all of the first it'll get washed, and then it will get dehaired, which is the process where it's kind of separating the guard hairs that are still left after the brushing process to the fine hairs like the cashmere.
I'm wondering if you could turn the sink around and put the drain towards the front more instead of towards the back.
All right, thank you. So first, another video. I think this will probably work, even though it's not still zoomed properly. But first, this is cashmere being sorted. Maybe it'll show. I don't know why it zoomed in so closely. Uh-oh, now I've done it. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. But the cashmere will get sorted by hand. So the different colors, cashmere will come in 3 different natural colors. This is, sorry, again, you can't see it very clearly, but this is actually white cashmere before it's washed. And so they sort through it for quality and also to make sure that it's all the same color. It's all the same color that it's supposed to be. Even if there's like some brown or some black, it actually causes large problems in manufacturing. So it's important to be hand sorted to make sure that it's all the right quality and all the right colors. But then after that, it'll go into the washing process. It'll get washed and come out clean. And then the guard hairs will be removed as well through other processing. And then it gets to spinning. And this is the first step at Sunshiro, which is the name of the spinning facility that I use. They're kind of a great small facility. So a little bit smaller batch minimums. And they're also flexible, so they don't get mad at me when I'm trying to do strange weights that they might not be used to for hand knitting, as most of the yarn production in Mongolia is for knitting machines, which is like very thin and not, the thicker fingering DK weights that I usually produce. this is where it starts. I believe that's the light brown yak wool. And then as it goes down, the process becomes flat, more even, the carding process. And then after the carding process, this is what we're left with. And then it's ready to be spun, to add twist and to be plied up. This is some of our baby camel wool actually getting plied together. So you have a lot of the singles, and then depending on how many plies we're plying it up to, it'll happen here, adding the twist together as well. This is another long shot of cashmere. It might even be the antique ruby baby yak wool, but that's before it goes into the twisting and into the final spinning. That's after it's being carded, but really long logs of the carded fiber. And then after that, we put it into hanks, put labels on it, and kind of the finished project there, the finished product. So this year, I think we're making 8 different cashmere colors, 3 yak wool colors, 2 baby camel wool colors, and then also 2 wool, sheep wool and cashmere blend colors as well. So yeah, generally in a year, it's somewhere around 1,000 kilograms that we make of yarn. And a lot of that depends, on the pre-selling and stuff that goes on in the Kickstarter for the demand. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And where we're at in the process right now is we're collecting the fiber, and the end of this week, we should have all of our cashmere, and then that'll start to get dyed and start the process from there. So probably went a little bit long. I could go longer here, but I figure we can take some questions, and I guess that's the kind of the intro why I'm here, where the fiber comes from and how it's made. So
Thank you, Jon. I'll open it up to Kay. She had a question earlier. Kay, do you want me to read your question off, or would you like to jump in?
Sure. Jon, you answered part of my question. It was just the unique qualities of the 3 different types of yarn that you produce. If there's anything else about strengths or anything that you might share between the yak and the camel and the cashmere.
yeah, I would say kind of like all things being equal, the finer the fiber, the softer it's going to be, but also maybe it's not going to be quite as durable. The thing about Mongolian cashmere is it also has a very long staple length. It's a very long fiber length, so it holds together better in knits, so it doesn't pill as much compared to like other cashmere that's shorter. Yak wool is known for being very durable. It's a bit thicker than cashmere. It's not quite as fine as cashmere. Cashmere is about 16 micron, depending on the cashmere that we get. And yak wool is closer to the 18.5 range. So it's still very soft. It's kind of feels more like a fine merino. But yak wool is known for its durability. And baby camel wool is maybe a blend of the two, but baby camel wool is really soft. It's really nice fiber. I think in the future, baby camel wool is going to become a lot more popular.
Thank you.
Jon, how do you decide what color you're going to be dyeing for that season?
Colors are the most difficult decisions that I make every year. I hate deciding on colors, but I send out, I let my customers do it. I send out a poll, and then I just pick the most popular ones. And then usually I'm like, okay, we're going to make 5 cashmere colors, but then there's, it'll be another 2 or 3 that are really close. It's like, okay, we're going to make them all. So it's customer, a lot of it's customer based, but I do like to always keep natural colors. So there's a cream, there's kind of a warm gray. And so I like to keep those around kind of no matter what. because those are always popular. And
And
then,
so here at the store, we've just ordered the natural colors because they are just so amazing. And I wanted for people to be able to see what it actually looks like. So I have not chosen to bring any of the dyed colors in, but maybe next season we'll have some dyed ones here.
yeah, I wish that there were more natural colors. There's kind of a next year, because there's 3 natural Mongolian colors, but one isn't, it's kind of like a tannish color. Maybe it's not the most appealing, generally speaking. But there can be the camel wool. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the color of a camel.
Yeah.
This is camel.
But yeah, it's possible to mix together the natural fibers too, to make some different colors. So.
So, and here on the cashmere, we've got the natural and then the natural warm gray.
Yeah, the warm gray is kind of like maybe what Mongolian cashmere is maybe most known for, that kind of natural kind of light gray or taupe color. And then the white is always good too.
Yes. And then in the yak, not sure how this is showing. We've got the platinum gray, which is the lighter, the natural milk chocolate, and then the natural dark chocolate.
Yeah, the
and
gray is a popular one. It's a little bit more rare, the gray color is, but yeah. And then we also do a little bit of dyeing as well. Last year we did kind of like a ruby color. It was kind of a red yak wool, and then this year we're going to do a hunter green as well. But traditionally, the yak wool isn't dyed, but finding some variety in colors. So.
So do we have any other questions? So, and then John, is your spinning fiber available that I could get into my shop?
Yeah, I'll talk to you about that, but I put some aside. I always pull the spinning fiber, out of what actually goes into making yarn, because I don't carry too much of the spinning fiber. It's a little bit more expensive as shipping because of the volume. Shipping out of Mongolia is really expensive, but absolutely, if you're interested in fiber, we'll talk about it. I'll make sure I keep plenty for you.
That is awesome. And then with the production, they are brushed in the springtime, and then that yarn that is brushed in the springtime, is that then produced into the fall, and then we get that then the following year?
Yeah, so usually how it'll go is everything will get brushed, pretty much in June. Most things are being finished with that, and then it'll make its way into the capital, the middle of June, beginning of July, and that's when the processing starts. So the washing and the dehairing. And then we'll start spinning, hopefully middle of this month, sometimes by the end of this month, depending on how busy the factory is and what they have in store. And then if all goes according to plan, yeah, that's what makes it to the States in November, end of November,
Okay.
what we're shooting for.
I have a quick question. John, you had the long log of red. Is that, so do you dye the fiber and then spin, or do you dye the yarns after they're spun?
Dye the fiber first, and then it goes through the spinning process.
There's a non-fiber related question as well. Mona asks if you had to learn the new language and what it sounds like.
Te manglar Mininerik John Gedik B Mongols Dodo Autohoyerges Bulgin. Yeah, my name's John. I've been in Mongolia for 12 years. I can speak Mongolian. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the good things about Peace Corps, is they give a pretty intensive language training. Like the first 3 months of Peace Corps, they don't just like send you out into the wild, I guess, immediately, but they kind of have trainings there, one for your job, because generally speaking, Peace Corps, it's mostly recent graduates. So, and a lot of times they're going into areas or fields that they don't have much experience in. A lot of them, most are going to be English teachers, whether they studied English in university or not. But part of that kind of 2 months, 3 months is kind of an intensive language course. And that doesn't do much, but it gets you started. And then Peace Corps also encourages people to continue their language studying, which I did quite intensively for the first year. I can speak. My understanding is a lot better now, but that's a kind of a thing that probably kept me in Mongolia as well, or maybe not kept me here, but a reason that I wanted to stay involved is because you put that the effort into, getting familiar and getting involved with the culture, and it makes it a lot easier to get around, to be comfortable. And even these days, the jobs that I do, if I'm doing like if I'm doing consulting work, or even just stuff for Ula and Lia, if I'm going to factories or meeting new people or new suppliers, or visiting the herders, I can speak with them, and I can, it's not fluent, but, we can be understood. And so that kind of helps a lot. That's kind of a big part of it, I think, of why I stayed in Mongolia.
John, the name of the company, how did that come about?
Yeah, so the Ula, the capital of Mongolia is Ulaanbaatar. And so Ula from Ulaanbaatar, and then Lia from Mongolia. So that's kind of like the mix. UB is a weird city. That I like UB. I enjoy UB. I enjoy capital cities, and there's some charm to it here. But there's also, if you come to Mongolia, you want to get out to the countryside. You probably don't want to spend a lot of time in the capital city. People don't come here to come to UB. UB is kind of what it's called locally. But there's still this big connection between kind of the pristine countryside of Mongolia and the open land and the nomadic herders and that traditional lifestyle and kind of the beautiful part of that. And then you have UB, which is can be, I don't know if it still is, but for a while it was one of the most polluted cities in the world. The air pollution was very bad. Traffic is bad, but it's where all the industry is. And so there's really good quality Mongolian products here made from, quality Mongolian raw materials. So it's still kind of this like kind of mix of two worlds. And so that was kind of the inspiration for the name, I guess, of Ula and Lia.
And then with the nomadic herd, how far are the different, we call them ranches out here, but the different compounds where they have the animals, the animals intermix with the different families, or are they pretty much the herders know that is their herd?
They can. It depends on the area. It depends where you go. If there's an area where there's like up north, kind of the northern part of the country, it's a lot more green. There's a lot more grass, so it can hold a lot more animals. And so in those areas, yeah, it's not uncommon for herds to kind of merge. And then whenever they need to be for sheep and goats and things like that, it's not that big of an issue. But probably around breeding time or for brushing time and things like that, they would re-separate the goats. They usually, brush the antlers or something like that, or the horns. For cows that are being milked daily, those are going to be kept more separate. But if it's an area, or if there's families together, herds, it's definitely not uncommon for herds to join each other. But kind of if you go into the Gobi, where there's not it's a desert, so there's not as much grass. There's not going to be as densely populated with animals. There, it's going to be a lot more rare for herds to mix. And
Okay.
like when you're going, it depends on the area. When you're going through the steppes and the plains, if it's a very green area, a very lush area, like there's going to be animals everywhere. You go through the Gobi, like you can drive a long time without seeing anything. And that's where the program that I'm working with now, the cooperative, the SCU, Sustainable Cashmere Union, they kind of help focus on herders in need places, difficult areas that are more affected by climate change, that need more help with sustainability and management. And so I visited the herders that I procured my fiber from this year, and last year as well, but I couldn't go last year because of COVID. So I actually visited them this year, and that's it was the first time I'd been deep into the Gobi. And so it's far away from, I'm in kilometers here, but it's a few hundred kilometers of like dirt roads to get to the next town. So it's far away. There's not much out there. And so it's interesting. There's the thing with like sustainability, because I have issues with it, and kind of my views have changed a lot throughout the years as I've been involved. Because at first it's like, I only want to buy sustainable cashmere. Like it has to be sustainable. Like, of course, like I only want to buy sustainable cashmere. But then it's, for instance, these families in the Gobi, the Sustainable Cashmere Union, they started working with them this last year, kind of more in earnest after we were able to go down there and visit them after COVID. And so they're providing them with trainings, herd management, how to improve fiber quality so they can lower herd sizes and things of that nature. Is it sustainable at the moment? I don't think so. They're working towards it. And I think that's kind of what's more important to me. Maybe I've changed my mind on this, because you could go up to the north where there's a bunch of grass and there's a lot of rain, the climate is fine and it's going to be more sustainable. But I'd kind of prefer helping develop these other communities and give them more business opportunities as well. So if I can work with the herders and they're trying to improve, if they're developing more sustainable practices, I think that's also a good thing as well. So sustainability is kind of a complicated issue here, and I kind of have some differing thoughts about it, and it's changed over the years that I've been here. But yeah, depends a lot on the different regions you're in.
All right, we have one last question from Amy. Amy, do you want to go ahead and voice your question?
Yeah, John, one of the things you and I talked about and is in your information is the difference between the unwashed, and Lori has some samples, but when the yarn comes to the stores, it has that final stage oils on it that change drastically once it's washed. And I don't know what Lori's, I have a sample, I don't know how well you can see it, with cables on it, and the stitch definition is fantastic.
Yeah.
But the difference in the feel, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I might have mentioned it during the presentation, but the large majority of the yarn that is spun here in Mongolia, it's for knitting machines. And kind of I like I've asked them what would happen if they just didn't use the spinning oils, but it doesn't seem like it's possible. But for the knitting machines, they need the oil. They need that extra oil in there as well for the knitting process and the harder knitting machines. But that is there in some of the larger yarn producers internationally. Nobody does it in Mongolia, but it gets washed afterwards. The yarns will actually be washed in-house before they are sent, to the distributors or to the final customers. So the oils get removed. That equipment isn't available. It doesn't exist in Mongolia. So whenever it's delivered to the customers, it still has some of the spinning oil in it. And so it's definitely interesting. It's like you feel that, if you grab a skein of the cashmere, it's soft, still think it's soft, but then you knit with it and wash it, and it changes drastically. It becomes much softer, and I think really puts the Mongolian cashmere in its true light. And I'm not, it's one of the things I'm open to feedback about it, but I ask my customers every year. I ask for constructive feedback, and that's always one of the things that I talk about. I don't know if it'd be worth, investing in that type of equipment here in Mongolia. It's a possibility to do that. It's something that I think about a lot. But my customers, they don't mind it. They almost enjoy it as well. So, having that drastic difference, and also during knitting, if you need to frog a lot, or you need to rip a project back, it also has a little bit of added strength there to it as well, kind of keeping things together. But you can wash afterwards, after a finished project, whenever you're doing blocking, or if you want to do it before, you can also wash it the full hank as well. So you can do it before or after. But yeah, it's an interesting process. A lot of people don't believe me, but it's like hot water and dish soap, and you do that, and that gets the oils out. You just want to get the water hot enough and the oil hot enough to where it separates. And that's pretty much all it is too. The Mongolian cashmere, yak wool, camel, it's very durable. So I know a lot of people are probably afraid of putting it in like hot water, but that's the way to do it, and it gets the best results that way.
The transformation was stunning. And I've done all three yarns, or all three of the 100% yarns, and each one was just stunning. It's phenomenal, and it didn't shrink, it didn't felt, it didn't do anything. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's
Thank
always
you.
that. Yeah, there's always that kind of moment of truth. Like you're a little bit, it's just a long project that you've put 50 hours into, but yeah, it always never fails, always comes out perfectly.
So we have the sample here at the store of it washed, and just to be able to feel the difference in the drapeness, because in the skein you don't feel it's amazing, but to feel the washed swatch it's a little bit of heaven.
Yeah, definitely.
From Mongolia.
Yeah, it's very important. I'm really happy you're there to show that as well. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, it's good to have you there showing that and having the different fibers to show people and how it changes.
Yes. So here at Cowgirl Yarn, we have the camel, and we have the cashmere and the yak, and we have the fingering weights and the DK weights if it was available, and just the natural colors. And we have it all listed on our website, and would love to send some to your home. And then, John, do you have a current Kickstarter going on right now? Do you want to give yourself a plug for that?
No, I guess it finished about a month ago. So no, as it is right now, yeah, you're the best place to get it. So
All right. Oh, hey.
Lori,
Wow.
do you have the QR code?
Oh, yes, thank you. So for those doing the crawl, I'm going to see my angle. Ooh. I'm going to hold this up for you to take a picture or a screenshot. Allison, tell me, is the angle good?
It's working on my phone.
Okay, John, you could register for the yarn crawl here at Cowgirl Yarn, and you can win potentially a $50 gift certificate.
Yep, it works. No problem.
Okay, all right.
Everybody able to get it? So, if you, do you have a camera, Gretchen? On your phone?
So we can, she's muted.
Okay, just coming up, tried to find the unmute. No, I don't have a camera on my phone, so.
Okay, I can enter you, Gretchen. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And I'll stick around for anybody who needs some assistance.
Okay.
So, John, thank you so very, very much. This was just absolutely amazing. So thank you, and love the product you are producing.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And if you come out to Wyoming, you're going to see some very similar landscape, and we can drive hundreds of miles and not see a single soul.
All right. Maybe I'll try to bring a yak there back with me and see how they do.
We do have some around here, and they're pretty amazing animals. Very, very friendly.
Awesome.
Yes. So thank you. And I would love to see a picture of a camel being brushed.
Yeah. Hopefully, I just missed the brushing because they
Okay.
were this trip I was in the Gobi, but hopefully soon. Hopefully this next season.
So anyhow, thank you so much. And thank you all
Right.
for joining us today.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.